Welcome back everyone to another Lord Duckman production. My buddy David Ranchero 302 broke the steering shaft on his Coleman KT196 Go Kart. This was a custom steering shaft that I lengthened some time ago, and it appears that I just didn't have the best weld penetration. David was doing some intense donuts when suddenly the cart flipped over. Sadly it was in the dark and couldn't be filmed, but he sure made an awesome rooster tail of sparks when he did. When we stood him back up on his wheels he was unhurt, but he had the steering wheel off and in his hands. Whoops! Well, he said he broke before a crash, but I think he broke it because of the crash. You know what I'm saying, guys? Nonetheless, it's broken, it needs to be fixed, and that's what we're going to do today. But not until we take a moment for our sponsor, the HIPA Store. The HIPA Store is a company that sells parts for lawnmowers and other outdoor power equipment and even has some parts for go-karts. We used an assortment of parts in the recent past to get these carts going, and it wouldn't have happened so quickly and easily if it wasn't for the HIPA Store. If you don't believe me, here's a few words from some of my viewers. Well, how can you go wrong there? You can! And right now, for the month of March, the very same carburetor that got our KT196 carts up and running again is on sale for $9.90. And that's just one of the many carburetors that are currently available from the HIPA Store, and it's also not the only item that's on sale. There's even some carburetors on sale for chainsaws, and even some chains, as well as a multitude of other items. There's even a carburetor on sale that will allow my go-kart to run on propane. How about that? So please check out the HIPA Store from my affiliate links down below in the video description, because when you support the HIPA Store, you're also supporting my YouTube channel. Special thanks again to the HIPA Store, and thanks to you for watching, liking, and leaving a comment. And we'll be back right after that intro. Welcome back everyone to another exciting Duckman production. And we're back today with David's go-kart, not mine, which you see behind me here, but actually David's, because he busted the steering shaft off of it. Thanks, as soon as I start recording. They've been quiet the whole while. Once again, start recording. Anyway, David was doing some they were quite impressive donuts. It was rather impressive because he was actually doing like an axis turn. He was turning around on his pivot point on some wet concrete, which made it slick, but remember, it's still concrete as opposed to asphalt, so it's still grippy. Well, what happened is his tires managed to hook up, and he rolled that thing, and it rolled with some force. And when it hit the concrete, it was still turning, and it threw a rooster tail of sparks out from under it. Really bright, white, magnesium-looking sparks. Very impressive. Nonetheless, we flipped the cart over, he's in it, he's out through it sideways, and in his hands, he's holding the steering wheel like this. Like, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. But anyway, he broke the steering shaft. This is the shaft that I extended, and oh my God, you come over here and yell again? This is the shaft I extended. He actually broke the welds, and it looks like it didn't adequately penetrate through the shaft itself, so I'm going to cut more of a V-groove into it and weld it together. I'm also going to put an insert inside of this thing. I'll slot it and stick another piece of steel inside of it and weld that all up together, so that way it's less likely to break on that joint because it'll have a lot more welding surface area. Anyway, that's what we're going to do. We'll tear this thing up and we'll give him back his steering wheel so that way he can take his cart out again. And you damn chickens, you guys are obnoxious. Absolutely obnoxious, see? Completely quiet until I start talking every single time. Alright, we got a keyed slot now. A little sloppy, but that's okay. We're just going to weld in it anyway. I'll open up these ends of it a little bit so that way I can weld down inside of there and fill the groove out. But yeah, that's pretty good. And then I'll cut down a taper on here so this comes to more of a point. So that way when I weld into this, it'll fill it and weld all the way to the core. Alright, well there it is. Alrighty, here's our steering shaft. You see I keyed out with a nice slot. Ow, that is a little warm. Made a piece that goes in there. I'll have to trim it down, of course, just from a piece of angle iron here. but that can go in there. I'll shorten it up a little bit, I'll hammer it together, and then I'll actually grind a little bit more out of it. It's probably just a little too big, because what I want to do is I want to fill in that groove with as much weld material as I can. I want as much penetration as we can get into this. Once I filled this groove and I got the shaft straight, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut down into here this way and then fill that up and then go over the whole damn thing and then stuff it in the lathe and turn it down, because it has to be this diameter here. This diameter is what fits in that bearing that's on the top of David's steering dashboard, underneath the dashboard where this attaches. So this is what we got. Still a little warm because I just cut it. You can see it burnt my finger a little bit. A little white mark there. That's how hot it is. Yeah, let me keep touching it because I'm an idiot. It's funny because my hands are so callous that I usually don't even feel it's hot until it's too hot, you know, and it already starts to burn me. All right, well, that's what we got. Let's trim it down a little bit, make it work. All right, here's what we're going for. You see we got that keyed in there. It may look a little crooked, but actually it's straight. It's just the way I put the metal in there, I twisted it a little bit so that way it would lock up solid in there and doesn't want to fall apart. But anyway, the shaft in here is now going to be welded in. It might look a little ugly, but again, once you weld it, it's going to just disappear. And it's laying in a piece of angle iron right now to keep it straight. So what I'll do is I'll put a clamp on either end of it here and just hold it in place, put my ground wire on this thing, and we'll start tacking this in here in a couple places. All right, I think in this case I can get away without clamping it down. The only reason I'm saying that is because it's heavy enough that it stays in place, and if the shaft has a little bit of wobble in it, it won't matter so much because it's just a steering wheel. It just turns 90 degrees in either direction. So what's it going to have? You know, half of a degree wobble? You know, big deal, right? So anyway, we'll get this laid in here nice and tight, which it appears to be doing, and we'll just get this thing tacked into place right here. All right, and what you didn't see is I already did the other side, and there it is. So now we have a shaft that's straight. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clean it up. We're going to cut into it a little deeper right through here and make us a nice V groove, and we're going to fill that out. So that way we get adequate penetration through this shaft as deeply as we can get it. But yeah, I'm not worried about it being crooked anymore. I don't really think I need the angle iron. You know what? That was kind of convenient because stopped it from rolling. All right, well. Here's our taper. You see the hourglass that I cut into it here. I'm gonna get in there, we're gonna weld that up. I'm gonna cut it a little wider though. A little bit wider. I want to get a lot more weld in there, bigger bead. Alright, I got the power on the welder turned way up, but I got the feed turned back because I don't want to fill it too quickly, but I do want to get it hot. As hot as we can get it. Shaft is still straight. Roosters are still screaming as soon as I start talking, every single friggin' time. And here we go. Alright, looking good so far. Let's get the other side. Be nice if this would auto-rotate, but I don't have anything that turns slow enough for that. So we're just going to have to turn it by hand. That's good and hot. Now we'll fill in the groove where our insert went in, or keyway, if you will. My God. Again, quiet until I talk. Holy shit, these damn birds. They'd be gone if I didn't love them. Let's get the other side. Yeah, the other side looks like it's pretty good, actually. Okay, there's our repaired shaft. Now it needs to go in the lathe so I can cut it down to be the size of that piece that slips in the bearing. Damn screamy birds. This isn't as hot as I thought it was going to be. But it turned out, looks like it's straight. No, I think I nailed it on the straightness, so we're good. Alright. I'm going to let that cool down just a little bit before we stuff it in the lathe because I don't want to try to handle it right now. I will burn the living crap out of myself. But I expect that that will be a much better and more solid joint than what we had before. Because now we've got adequate penetration all the way to the core, and there's an additional piece in there, a key if you will, that locks everything together, so even if the weld tried to break, it's still going to have something to hold on to. So, I don't know, we'll see. David will find a way to break it, I'm sure. The diameter of my steering shaft up here, this is the bearing surface that used to be. Use my trusty mic here. Try to get us a accurate gauge as to how much I have to turn it down on the lathe. Here we go. Get that bearing surface right. Anyway, we got that cut down. It is a little pitted because there are some low spots, but as far as it's concerned, it's going to go down in the bearing just fine. Put a little bit of grease on it, set it up in there. This little washer that's on here, I'm glad I set this on before I got started because there's no way I would have been able to slide it over this expanded portion of the shaft here where it goes down into that bearing. But this actually sits right at about here. This is about the correct location that it needs to be. I'll take a measurement from this line. That's actually from the stock shaft that's on here. That's how they came to where the washer is, and that'll be the same measurement on my other go-kart, which uses the same shaft, except I extended the bottom instead of the top. But nonetheless, I'll just make sure this distance is correct, because that distance is critical. Otherwise, this shaft will slide in and out of its location, and on the bottom, where the gear goes into the rack and pinion, it'll actually fall out of the rack and pinion. Stupid design, but that's just the way it works. They made it super simple. It'd be nice if the rack and pinion would lock in from both sides, but it doesn't. And also cause it to have a lot of play. It would be really nice, yeah, but that's just not the way it was designed. Anyway, all right, we'll get that on there. I'll make sure this measurement is right. There they are. And we'll get the sucker welded back in. But otherwise, this is just about ready to go back to David's house. All right, the only thing this washer does is limits the travel of this shaft, so it doesn't need a whole ton of welds on it. It's not really a structural thing. It just stops the shaft from moving in place. So we'll put a couple of welds on the top right here. There it is. I'll wire brush it and file down those welds a little bit, because those you will see when this cart is assembled, but otherwise this shaft is now ready to go. Yee! Alright, there it is, ready to rock and roll. Should be good to go. He shouldn't have any problem with it, although I lost his nut. There was a nut on the end of it. I'll give him a new one, but yeah. And there it is. Steering wheel's ready to go back on. Should be good to go. Alright. Bolt in here. Nut on the back side. Hey, you know, you guys haven't seen me use in a while. Uh-oh. Duckman, did you know that an impact can strip a bolt? Alright, make sure we're tight all the way around the board here. We're good. Alright, that should get it. I think he'll be very pleased with that, at least until the next time he does something crazy with a kid's go-kart and decides to crash it again and break it to pieces. I keep having to remind him that, you know, we are adults roughhousing in kids' go-karts. And unless you reinforce a lot of things like I have on mine, stuff's gonna break. It's gonna break. Anyway, he'll be happy to get this back, so we'll return it to him, and then we got another go-kart race coming up. He and I are gonna start tearing stuff up, and I've also been considering getting another go-kart. I want to get something bigger, just a little bigger. Something bigger that fits me better, something that's not a kid's go-kart, something that's made for adults. Even if it has the same size engine in it. Just something that's a little more rugged, better built for me, rather than having to build a kid's go-kart to fit me. Anyway, we'll kick that around. I've had a lot of offers to buy the one that I've got, which is a nice thing too, so I don't know, we'll see what happens. There it is. Alright, lucky me, the nut turned up. How about that? Thought I was going to have to go to the hardware store and find him another one. Fixed. Alright, good. Ready to go home. Today's trash day, and I just found a mower right there in the neighbor's trash, so I grabbed it real quick before any of the metal scrapper guys came around, because there was a whole bunch of other metal stuff too. But anyway, I grabbed this. Looking at the condition of the pull rope, I'd say that somebody didn't know what they were doing. It does have a rivet in there to stop it from going in all the way, so this is certainly repairable. It has compression, so what do you need? Fuel and spark. Might be a good video coming up, so watch for that one. Wet out, so it was a little slick. But would you shut up? Go away! Now just calm yourself down, animal rights activists. No, I wasn't being abusive. I tried to get my foot under him to lift him up into the air. This time, I kinda missed. But it was rather impressive to see how quick he was to jump up and then kick off the side of the tree the way he did. Chickens are amazing.